With it officially being spring, it feels appropriate that we head off here to Spring Mountain for the first race of the season in the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama Series. I'm Joe Peak here with Joey Atterbury to bring you qualifying for this weekend's two-race event. Going to be trying to set the grid and get everybody in order, which is probably going to be important because most of the drivers saying, Joey, this is a very technical track. I imagine passing might be a bit difficult.
Definitely a more technical racetrack, and the straightaways are not hugely long straightaways, so those brake zones are relatively short here at Spring Mountain. You're right, it can be a little bit difficult to pass, so qualifying going to be very important to earn that track position out there. Remember, the further you're forward in that grid, all the mess gets to be behind you.
Now, what's interesting here, if you were following us for the North America Series a little bit earlier, a couple weeks ago down in Sebring, they run the Caymans and the GT3 cars separate. They are going to be combined into one, both in the qualifying and the races. So this is essentially multi-class as we traditionally think of it, with drivers having to share the track, and that will be its own little interesting dynamic that the drivers will have to deal with out there. Thankfully, 13 cars total going to be out on track, Joey, so they should be able to find some space, but certainly whoever's on the radio with you needs to be communicating where everybody else is.
Especially here in qualifying, right? You don't want to get held up by a car that you are faster than. So the radio and having that team on pit wall is so crucially important. Some drivers, they like a little bit of call it a carrot to go out there and chase and kind of replicate the lap time if they're not 100% confident in knowing exactly where to go. Some drivers are a little bit different. Some drivers just want that absolutely clean windshield in front of them so that way they can focus on their own marks, their own rolling speeds through apex, and really kind of drive the track by themselves. But kind of to your point, Joe Peak, with 13 cars out here, I think there's plenty of racetrack for everybody to get along with.
Definitely, and it is a very interesting, though not as commonly known racetrack. This is the Charleston Peak Circuit here at Spring Mountain Raceway, and as you can see, it's got a fair bit of elevation change out here in the midst of the Nevada mountains. So we watch some of our GT3 cars start to get up to speed. Doesn't look like we have full lap times in quite yet for any of them, so probably on that first flying lap out here. The other thing that I think a lot of them are grateful for, last year at the season opener, it was cold and rainy. It was wet. This time, it is completely dry, Joey. It is beautiful weather.
It is a beautiful weather day, especially if you are a driver, because remember, we're out here outside of Las Vegas. It is typically very hot. Like you said last year, very cold depending on what month you're out here, but it's beautiful, going to be mid-70s, just a nice overcast day here, so we don't have the sun beating on the racetrack, making the track temperature just overly excessively hot. Yeah, it's a beautiful day to be inside a race car.
Now, we will have 4 total classes racing. Mostly we'll be focusing on 3 of them. The Caymans have a Pro-Am and a Masters, although we'll mostly be focusing on the Masters. And then, of course, there's the Pro-Am and the GT3s, and then the Masters in the GT3s. The only difference between those two within the different makes of car is the age of the drivers, with the Masters being those that are more experienced, shall we say. And first times on the board, Daniel Hanley, definitely looking very strong, coming in with quite a bit of racing experience, Joey, especially in GT4 style machinery, but he is here in the 992 Cup car, so that's a little bit of a faster beast, and he's got it down to a 153, it looks like.
You're right, he does have a lot of experience, especially in the last couple years, and just a lot of different sanctioning bodies and going racing, and it's awesome to have him back here with the Sprint Challenge Series. He was racing in 2023, and now he's back here in 2025 and setting the early pace. Right now, a 153.431. That is what everybody is chasing.
For those that feel like that Hanley name sounds familiar, his dad also has raced, Mike Hanley, and runs the Hanley Motorsports racing team. So definitely another family affair. Still waiting for drivers to get up to speed in those 992s. Interesting that we've got a Cayman second overall, Henry Marshall for HM Road Racing with a 1:58.9. Now, granted, that's 5 seconds off of our time for provisional poll right now, so it's definitely separated. But we need to see some of those 992s start to step it up and put one down.
Speaking of Henry Marshall, he actually didn't get into the car at Sebring at our first endurance round, so this is the first time that he has been inside the Cayman GT4 race car here in 2025. This is his home track. They're based out of Spring Mountain, just outside of Las Vegas here, so lots of track time, probably the most amount of track time compared to all of the other drivers here.
Brennan Hankins briefly on the pole. Luke French now out there in the 2:15, taking that away to about 1.5 seconds, it looks like, over Hankins. And Luke is motivated this season. He is returning. We have very few returning drivers for USA West from last season. Luke's one of them. He did not manage to get a victory last time out in 2024. He feels confident that he's got the speed this season to try and do it, and he's already aiming for a crown at the end of it.
When we talked to him yesterday, his goal was pole, right? Pole and win. That's what he has on his mind, and that first lap time from him is significantly faster than his teammate Hanley out there. I mean, call it 2 full seconds faster, a second and a half if you want. And setting that early pace at a 1:50.8. That's a pretty good lap time from what we've seen all day today.
Here we see some of these longer corners around turn 8. Takes a long time to get through that left-hander, which leads up to 9, and then into what is becoming a bit of a notorious turn here at the Charleston Peak Circuit, which is Nighthawk. This is it right here, Joey. Big dip in elevation.
It's right by where we are in the broadcast tower here, a dip into elevation, and then what's the cool part? The second part, look at how much banking there is on the racetrack as the cars just kind of fall towards that apex of what is turn number 11 on this layout of the circuit. So watching those two beautiful GT3 Cup cars come around the last final sector and set down another lap time.
So coming through that last little fiddly chicane to wrap up the lap, and actually 204 going to pull out of the way. That is Mark Krigler, so giving a little bit of space. Let's see if we get any improvement across the line from either of them as they go by that start-finish line. And I don't see any changes in position on our timing tower. Still French up at the top in the Pro-Am for the 992s, and then Doug Brandt is our quickest in the Masters in that 205 machine. Meanwhile, Marshall still remains the quickest in the Caymans.
The pace is picking up, though. I'm looking at my timing and scoring over here, and all of our cars are setting their fastest laps of the session right now. So that means the tires are up to temperature, the tires are finally up to pressure, the driver's brain is in the right kind of form of thinking. They're out there and they're getting after it.
Definitely talked to a few drivers that said that they're just trying to get the experience out here, coming in a little bit green. The Porsche Sprint Challenge Series, both the West and the North America series, are kind of the first stepping stone here in professional racing. A lot of drivers moving up from club-style racing and track days to dip their toes into it for the first time. So this is where you cut your teeth. You're coming in, learning the ropes, and definitely learning quite a bit today, I'm sure. Many of these drivers trying to get the best out of these machines out there as we watch Luke French in his new livery as well come up and down, and that's going to be a compromised lap with the 204 pulling off to the side.
I'm looking, though. He had his fastest Sector 2, so yes, he did get a little bit of compromised going into the brake zone of turn number 10, but I think that there's still plenty of time left in qualifying with 15 minutes remaining here for him to go out there. And even if this specific lap is not faster, you still got plenty of time to go out there and try to improve.
The thing that amazes me is just how young so many of these drivers can often get their start. Luke French here on our screen actually first raced a GT4 car at 13, he told us. I can tell you what I was doing at 13, and it was not driving in a race car.
That's got to be a cool opportunity for sure, and when it comes down to being comfortable in a race car, the more practice time, the better. It doesn't matter the car, it doesn't matter the track, you just need seat time. The more comfortable you are behind the wheel, the more fun stuff and aggressive moves you can pull off with skill.
Looks like Luke may be backing off this lap. He didn't look like he was really hustling the car there. That's onto the backstretch out of Badgers. You can see it opens up into the following turn. That's one of those spots where we think maybe we could see some pass attempts into there, but it is a very sharp hairpin.
And you were right, French is kind of off the pace, just kind of giving a little bit of a cool down lap here. So focusing on another one of these GT3 Cup cars coming up to what is turn number 10 here. Dive this thing off into that steep elevation drop and then drive it into the camber of the racetrack. And we're kind of spoiled here, Joe, being in the broadcast booth in the tower right in front of this turn 10 complex. It really is neat with the elevation and the banking that's going on in this set of corners. It looks incredibly fun to drive.
It does, and then of course it doesn't end there. The next set is called Tortoise, and it kind of makes sense because it takes you over this hump. I almost compare it to VIR because you're going through S's as the car rises and has to try and find grip as it wants to go airborne.
See what they can do here coming up through what is turn number 1. Accelerate down kind of this short shoot straightaway to turn number 2, and a couple of these corners in the first sector, especially more towards what is turn number 4 on this racetrack. Now, we had to get out here to this tower somehow, and thankfully we were able to kind of explore the racetrack a little bit, and what surprised me is how off-camber some of these corners actually are. If you're not on the racing line and at the proper speed, it's going to kind of slide you right off into the rocks.
Yeah, this is Daniel Hanley that we're watching on this lap. That's down through 5, the hairpin. Another rise here, blind rise up through 6 that bleeds right into 7. So big change of direction.
And you mentioned the key word. It is blind going up and over turn number 6. You got to make sure you got that race car placed exactly where you want it. And now as we watch Hankins here come through what is, call it, turn number 8, approach turn number 9, which is a relatively straightforward, fast, sweeping left-hander, and then another straightaway here. He's going to possibly get held up. There's 2 cars off the pace directly in front of him. That's going to make Hankins go to the middle of the racetrack. Definitely compromise his line in terms of the lap speed.
Yeah, Hanley is not going to be happy with that one. They saw him, but there's no place that they could really put the car to get out of Hanley's way. So Daniel around into the last bit of the lap here. This last chicane, look at this. Kink heading into it, and then really sharp braking to end the lap into one of the more critical periods where we have at least a bit of a straightaway on the main straight here. So you don't want to screw that one up, and let's see where that one puts him. Unfortunately, not improving.
No, I think it was a 151.98 is what he did, so it was just a little bit off there. I'm sorry, a 152.8 is what he did, and just as I say that, it looks like Doug Brandt is jumping up into P3, so the former basketball player showing some speed out on the racetrack.
Yeah, late in the session. I do love that he mentioned that, all those years of competing in team sports, he said that, really gives him that drive for competition. So I could definitely see that. You find that a lot in athletes where they don't like losing, and that just pushes them forward to get the most out of themselves.
And to kind of chuckle a little bit, I had to ask Doug, because there's not very many times that I have to look up to people. And, I mean, Doug is 6'10", and he still manages to fit inside one of these Porsche race cars. So it's pretty impressive.
A testament to Porsche that they can fit that variety of size of people in these cars. Yeah, 6'10" is up there. He towers over everybody else in the paddock for sure. We've got 10 minutes left in this qualifying session, so still plenty of time. Just under 2 minutes per lap. It's not that long of a racetrack. It's just so technical around here that it does take you a while to put one on the board. As that's the 250 coming down through Nighthawk. That is Mark Wilgus and Loftus Motorsports machine to try and finish up his lap. Doesn't look like he's on a quick one, though. Oh, no, I take that back. Second sector was pretty decent.
what I find fun with qualifying, right? We're just past halfway, and this is kind of where we see the performance levels really mesh between all of the drivers. And I'm specifically looking at kind of Doug Brandt, Hanley, as well as Wilgus over here. There's only about a half a second separating what is P3, 4, and 5 on the racetrack. So even though that there's 9 minutes left and the drivers have been throwing down their quickest laps of the day so far, there's still lots that can change.
This is Mark Krigler that we've got on screen right now. He is last amongst the 992s, so still trying to find himself a bit of pace. I think he still needs, it looks like, about 3 seconds to catch up to Londo, so probably some debriefing to do afterwards. Another one of those drivers that's just a little new to professional competition out here with Porsche Sprint Challenge, and he's just learning every day. I always love when you talk about it, Joe. You describe it as drinking from the fire hose.
Yes, you do. I mean, it's a plethora of information, and you got to intake it all. Now, majority of these drivers do have their coaches with them, and you had mentioned the keyword debrief, right? After every single session, not only does the car get going and taken care of by the team, but the driver has debrief to go through with their coach. They'll look at data, they'll look at video, and say, hey, you know what, we're struggling over here at turn 5, or we need a little bit more rolling speed through turn number 10. And going through all of these drivers, there's actually probably about half that don't have a ton of experience here at Spring Mountain. So you're right, a debrief's incredibly important and a lot of information for these drivers.
That lap was a huge improvement for Krigler, down to a 156. He's now within about 2 seconds of Londo, who's the next car up ahead of him. Also, kind of a step up for him. Although he did race in some other single make stuff last year. He was also previously competing in TC America. Now, touring cars definitely a little bit different from racing in the 911 Cup car here. As we hop on board with Tim Smith, here is a driver that is used to going very fast, but usually up in the air.
Yeah, very jealous. Ex-Navy pilot here had told me he's got time in Tomcats, Hornets, started in the P3 Orion, so lots of flying experience, and now he's out there flying on the racetrack. And I'm happy we're covering the Caymans right now, because the gap between first through third, only about 3.5, maybe 0.4 of a second. So this driver that we're riding on board with, of Tim Smith, he can actually go out there and improve his lap and jump up a couple positions.
It's not going to take much, that is for sure. Close to the pole, very close to the front row, with Tom Rogers, the next one, up by about 1/10 of a second to try and improve from here. On board with Smith, really showing some of the rises that are throughout this track into turn 7. Going to switch back into the never-ending turn 8.
Make sure not to go out too wide out here in turn number 8. Otherwise, Joe Peak will definitely get on your case about potentially going off the track out there. But it looks like Tim Smith keeping it nice and on line. And this is another one of those fast, sweeping left-handers. Turn number 9, nice and tucked into the apex here. You got to hit the brake marker. This is where we see a lot of these drivers kind of have a little bit of trouble out here. And Tim Smith, his first sector was his fastest sector. Not only his fastest sector, but the fastest Cayman GT4 sector of the day.
So he seems to be going well. Second one was not improvement. I'll have to check to see if it was at least on pace, though. I hope he didn't lose out after having such a good start to the lap here. Would certainly do him well to gain at least one position on the grid to start on that front row as we watch from the Yokohama blimp across the line here shortly as he exits out of the final chicane. Where does Smith put it this lap? A 58.302 improved just by a few hundredths. He is now 0.5 away from the front row.
I didn't think it was going to get any closer than what it already was, but yeah, Tim Smith just closing in that gap to what is second and first place. And still with 5 minutes left on the racetrack, sometimes as a driver, this is that time, all right, you just went out and set your personal best lap. Do you have a little bit more in it? And if you do, okay, take a lap, maybe even take 2 laps. Calm the thing down, cool the thing down, and then get back after it for one final good lap.
Man, whatever they did to dial in your...
Absolutely. And we watch Smith come down to the braking of turn 5 here, trying to get the car woed up and down to that apex. just slightly off it, but gets on the throttle nice and smooth, and it's off into turn 6, up and over that rise. Let's see what the first sector looks like for him this time. And no, this is not an improvement for him, so maybe this is just a cool-down lap for him.
I think that's exactly what it is. My eye has drawn to the number 13, though. That is Perriott in that Cayman. We'll see if he can come across and improve his lap time. And looks like we got a spin out there on the racetrack. Was that Tim Smith going around?
That was the 13. You were just talking about him.
Oh, no, that was Perriott there.
Yeah.
He was on a heater. If you look, he had Sector 1 and Sector 2 purple, so he was on the ragged edge.
Somebody to grab it, it's too late. It's gone. You guys.
Interesting. We haven't seen a lot of incidents out here up to this point in qualifying, which is good to see that it's been a nice clean session thus far, but when you are pushing to the ultimate, that it's going to be difficult to keep the cars completely in control.
So this is the number 13 car that we've got an eye on here, rounding through some of these corners on this beautiful racetrack. So this is Perriott we're still watching. And after that spin, I wouldn't be surprised if he brings it into pit lane, because if you go off the racetrack in qualifying, the last thing you want to do is damage the car. But if everything feels okay, you got to trust the driver in that information that they're giving you. Certainly seems like the 13 is back onto a hot lap.
Trying to see if we still have the 70 out there, because from what I could tell, for a while it was just Jack here and Tim. Yeah, it does. Oh, no, we have a different car that's still out there. That looks like Tom Rogers.
Jeff, grab this car.
No, that might be actually Greg Herback. Excuse me. It is indeed Greg Herback who is out on track. Most of them have already come into pit lane, it appears. Maybe happy with what they've got out there. That or maybe just cooling the tires down. In fact, I can see the onboard for Tim Smith on one of our other screens, and he's taking his gloves off, so he must be happy with his third place.
And in the case of the two cars out on the racetrack, Perriott and Herback, these are actually the cars that have turned the most amount of laps in qualifying. And generally what that tells me is the driver still getting used to everything. They want to go out there and they want to feel the brake marker a little bit more in turn 5. They want to feel the elevation in turn number 10, because just like what we referenced earlier, seat time is seat time. Practice is important. The more practice you got, the more comfortable you are inside that car.
Greg Herback's had plenty of seat time even in this GT4 Cayman, because he was competing last season in 2024 here in the USA West Series. However, he started out at Utah Motorsports Campus, which was a little bit later. So this was his first time, at least with this series. He has driven here before, he says, so he's got experience, but it's always a different beast to get out there with other cars, as he was a little off the final apex, carries on for another lap.
And with only a minute 30 remaining as he crossed the line there, this will be the final qualifying lap. He is our only car still out there on the racetrack, so he's got this beautiful Spring Mountain Resort all to himself right now. Just focus on the marks, focus on the rolling speeds, especially around these long corners, and learn everything you can to get prepared for the race later today.
Waiting to see what his sector times look like here. First one should be over soon. Should end just after turn 5 here as he slams on the brakes, tries to get it turned in, and exits out of turn 5. Do have a bit of curb that you can use up on the outside here. And Herback, I'm still not getting his time on my time and in scoring yet, so we'll check on that in a bit. Does look like he's still hustling it on this last go.
It does. Just kind of judging from the attitude of the car, it's all the way leaned over in a lot of these corners. So Herback is at least trying to keep the temperatures and pressures up, because that could be another thing that we're seeing here. Now, the teams, they want solid data. That means on your cool-down lap, don't drive the car like a minivan. You got to drive it at 10/10ths, because the more realistic those tire pressures and tire temperatures are for that data, the better they can tune in and fine dial this car.
Just a couple more corners to go as the clock now hits 0. Checkered flag is out, but only one car will take it, with everybody else having brought it into pit lane. Weaves his way through Tortoise and up towards the final chicane. Gets it out nice and wide to try and open up that kinked entry here Let's see if he can hit his marks this time. Gets it ducked in. This is looking good. Coming off the final corner. Is it going to be an improvement? First sector was a personal best for him. Second sector was okay. What's the third sector like as he crosses the line? It's a 2 flat 5 right now. And as we wait for the timing and scoring to update and he takes that checkered flag, it looks like it might stay at that 2 flat 5, and he will not improve. So we will stay as we are after that time.
And just to kind of put this in, he did stay in 4th place. He did improve his lap time. It just popped up on the screen for us. So a 2-minute .1, so he improved by about 0.4 of a second over his best.
He wound up so close to Perriott in front of him, which he's not racing for points positions, but the overall still important to these drivers. That means that our grid is unofficially set for race 1 a little bit later today. Let's take you through our starting order. Luke French manages to put it on the pole. That's job 1 done for him. Can he follow it up? Brandon Hankins will start from 2nd. Then it's Doug Brandt in 3rd overall, but on pole for the Masters. Daniel Handley will start from 4th. Mark Wilgus will be in 5th. And then you've got Londo, who is starting from 2nd to the Masters, 6th overall on those 992s. Krigler, the last of the 992s. Joey, what's our Cayman field look like?
Yeah, it's going to be Henry Marshall. It's going to be your pole sitter there in that Cayman's Master Class, followed with Rogers starting 2nd and Tim Smith back here in 3rd place. We got Perriott. He is going to be the pole sitter for that Cayman Pro-Am class. Then we got Greg Herback back here in 4th overall in that Masters class. And then Bradshaw is going to be rounding out, call it our 6 Caymans entered.
So there's your 13-car field for this weekend here at Spring Mountain Motorsports Park. Thank you for joining us, but we've got more action to come later today. Join us for Race 1 here in Pahrump, Nevada in the USA West Series.